Warning, the following program contains news talk, solutions, and information not found in filtered media outlets. Viewer discretion is advised.
Attention, you are now about to enter
Filter-Free Radio.
So open your mind, push reset, and reboot your computer.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Filter. It's time for news, opinion, and ass-kicking from Filter-Free Radio. Better than news, better than talk. Giving the finger to mainstream media. Who's got the goods? They've got the goods. It's Filter-Free Radio. FilterFreeRadio.com.
When I talk about resistance, I think we have to stand up now and carry out acts of nonviolent resistance.
Because the truth is, we do have power.
We live in revolutionary times, but the counter-revolution is winning.
Sounds like a case of the Mondays.
Live Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. FilterFreeRadio.com.
This is my favorite show.
We have been given an opportunity to make a new beginning.
And I think it's very important for us to start to build a culture of resistance because what we're doing isn't working, clearly.
It's our job to very coldly assess reality and then figure out how to respond.
Your number one source for unfiltered truth, analysis, and solutions. FilterFreeRadio.com.
And welcome to the show. What do you think about raising the minimum wage to a living wage? What is that living wage? Are you fighting for 15? Does 15 go far enough? You want to talk about some money? Give me a call. 503-746-TALK is our telephone number. That's 503-746-TALK. Jacob at filterfreeradio.com. The website, filterfreeradio.com. Find us on Twitter at filterfreeradio. On Facebook, facebook.com/filterfreeradio. You can find this show for free on iTunes, for free on YouTube, on Stitcher, and of course at filterfreeradio.com, where you can also find my exclusive interview with Socialist Seattle Council member Kshama Sawant, which I will be sharing with you during this program. You're going to want to stay tuned. Not only that, but Kshama Sawant, council member Kshama Sawant's speech in Portland just a couple of days ago on Thursday of last week came to town talking about raising the minimum wage, but it's not just Kshama Sawant and the folks at 15now.org making a difference. Also got to give a shout out to the people who helped make it possible, and that is the Socialist Alternative and Portland chapter, Portland Socialist Alternative, which we have recently liked on the Facebook page. And big shout out to Nicholas Caleb for City Council here in Portland. I have a very cool video to share with you of Nicholas speaking at the event. And don't you think we all need our own Kshama Sawants locally, getting active in politics in the local levels, but not just getting active on the inside game, but getting active on the inside game with the outside positions, the outside game positions. And I love the idea behind an independent, self-identified socialist Occupy movement candidate not taking a dime of corporate cash, even though Supreme Court says, open the floodgates, let the Koch brothers own you and own the politicians and own the judges. Got them all in their back pockets, right? Let them own us. Meanwhile, we have another example of you and I, when we come together and we educate ourselves and we get active and work together, we can make things happen. And the case in the story of council member in Seattle, Kshama Sawant, is case in proof. Now, if this is just for our good friends who have been living under a rock for the last 6 months, 7 months, good listeners and, good friends of the program know who Kshama Sawant is and know about the movement behind raising the minimum wage to the living wage. We'll talk about that. There's a lot of questions, and we'll get into all of that as well. Well, Aren't most minimum wage workers just young teenagers trying to earn some play money? No, actually 75% of minimum wage workers are over the age of 20. Well, shouldn't workers who want to earn more, actually have to go to school and get a better education so then they can go get a better job? Yeah, I'm with you for the most part, but actually the for-profit education system, which has been, privatized and profitized by the corporations who want to make a buck off of everything. And not only that, but when you get into the for-profit education, you're playing in a very dangerous realm of controlling the information and controlling the knowledge, and talk about, indoctrinating and, kind of brainwashing, right? That's a whole different conversation, but education today really does not promise students more opportunity. It just promises them more debt if you're paying attention to what is going on out there. So we can talk about these questions. Any questions? Also would love to know your thoughts. 503-746-TALK. Can businesses even afford to pay $15 an hour? We'll talk about that. I don't know. CEOs of Starbucks, McDonald's, Subway, Pizza Hut, and a majority of the other big corporations raking in millions and billions and trillions, which is thousands and tens of thousands of millions, right? The CEO of Yum Brands, which is KFC and Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, for one example, made over $20 million last year alone, just for one example. And he can't pay his workers $8 an hour. And let's be frank, I mean, with this, new kind of transparent peek behind the curtain of this, the Los Angeles Clippers owner, how they really feel about how they make their money and the people who, work for them, right? But I need to welcome to the show our super duper awesome mass producer, our co-host, our kick-ass all-around brother from another mother. He is the one, the only Mr. Skeptical Scott.
Hello.
Live.
Hello. Is this thing working? Is it turned on? Can you hear me now?
Hey, there he is, man. You sound great. He is
outstanding.
Sounding great and broadcasting live from our nation's capital there in D.C. It's good to have you on board, brother.
Good to have this computer thingamajiggy working.
You had me worried there for a couple of minutes, but I know it was all good. And you're like, no, I got to get on the air. I got to tell the people what it is, so...
Well, this gives me a newfound appreciation for the necessity of having an accessible and usable internet access. Is that redundant? In any case, I got, pretty poor internet availability at this juncture, and so I'm beholden to the network, which is being throttled down during peak usage, etc. So, hey, but I'm here now.
Hey, and we're making it happen, brother. Just in time for the conversation about, kind of picking up a little bit of where we left off on last week and moving forward. Like, one of the upcoming shows we're going to do is an expose example of some of the awesome, nonprofit co-ops that are happening here in Portland that people can participate and support in. And I was actually reached out to by one of the people who I met at this event, at the 15now.org event in Portland, featuring Kshama Sawant and Nicholas Caleb running for city council here in Portland, and also the Fight for 15 folks, socialist alternative folks, and someone who I'm really excited to get to is an organizer for the All Africans People's Revolutionary Party chapter here in Portland, and his name is Ajumu Umi. And if you've had a chance to watch his 10-minute speech, which is posted on our homepage right now at filterfreeradio.com, as well as all of our other videos from this coverage, including my exclusive interview with Kshama Sawant and speeches by Nicholas Caleb and Kshama Sawant and Ajumu Umi. This was by far, in my opinion, the best speech. The best 10-minute. I mean, like Kshama Sawant was the star of the show, right? And we gave, she had like a half an hour, and her half hour is amazing. I'm going to share most of it with you coming up. But for the first 10 minutes in one of the first speeches, just to really just hype us up and go woo. And I didn't get a chance to share this with you before, since it just happened last week. I want to play this, and Scott, you tuned in at a perfect time when I start this. So, this is and this is really good for. It was a really good wake up call, I think, for everyone who was walking in there thinking, all right, if we win $15 an hour minimum wage for all workers across the board, that is great, that is fantastic, and the work is done. Game over. I'm going to go home, sit on the couch, and turn on the TV. This was a wake-up call. It's time to wake up, friends, because what is the end game here? What comes next, right? I want to talk about, and actually, I want to share my personal thoughts on the movement and the ideas behind the movement. My personal thoughts are, does $15 an hour go far enough? No, it does not. And you and I know that if the minimum wage was adjusted for inflation appropriately over the course of the last 40, 50 years to keep up with the same rate of growth as worker production that you and I are creating as the workers, our minimum wage should be in the realm of $20, $22, $23 an hour. And people have done the math on it.
$21.15.
Scott's done the math. He's got it down.
Yeah, the number I understand, you read a bunch of different numbers out there, and some people will say $11. But the actual number, adjusted for inflation, based, were to keep up since 1968, which was the last time it was kept up with inflation, and as well as adjusted for the fact that we are far more productive now on a worker per worker basis than we ever were back then, and we are also far more productive than the rest of the industrialized world, since we all work longer hours and are more efficient. It would be $21.15.
There you go, and exactly right. So, first of all, I love how he shatters the paradigm, to begin with. So what's the end game? $15 an hour? Really? And so that's my point is, I don't believe $15 goes far enough. Also, I would be willing to go as far as to say that I would be suspicious of any current status quo establishment already willing to jump behind and support the $15 an hour movement. We need all of the support we can get. Absolutely. And you need to go to votesavant.org to contribute if you can. But what bothers me is why would some of these people be willing to already step out and go against their own best interest to support something like this? And to me, what is clear is, they know that I know that we all know that $15 an hour doesn't go far enough, and so they're probably willing to settle for 15 because you and I are not fighting for 25, right? So just a thought. Keep that in mind. That's where I'm coming from, and I want to share with you where the organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party here in Portland, Oregon, Ajumu Umi, is coming from, and this is some great stuff. So let's start here. Eventually, we're going to get to the exclusive interview with Kshama Sawant. I've got a cool clip to play from Nicholas Caleb, who is going to be Portland's Kshama Sawant here in Portland, and we need to talk a little bit about that as well. So here is Ajumu Umi, and really kind of getting us fired up. And this is where I want to start. Again, this is the 15now.org event in Portland, Oregon on Thursday, April 24th, 2014, recorded by yours truly in attendance in the front row. And I had to stop recording at the end of his speech and stand up and give him a standing ovation from the front row. So this is why the applause right at the end is cut off. But he got a standing ovation from the packed room. I should mention, standing room only, my best estimate, over 100 people, maybe 120, 30 people at the very most, somewhere around 100 people, but it was standing room only. Every seat in the house was taken, and it was one of those small rooms that when you get that many people in it, it kind of gets hot, and everyone's kind of getting warm, and everyone's going back to get a drink of water. That's how many people were in the room, just saying. Ajumu Umi, here you go. Enjoy.
All right, so for the first speaker, I'm going to introduce Kshama Umi. He's an organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party here in Portland, Oregon. He's been involved in multiple social justice campaigns, and it's my pleasure to present Kshama Sawant.
All right. Alu, Wohosi 10. Yafri Mia Jamu. Just a little West African Fonte greeting for you because Portland needs culture like that.
Yeah.
We were asked to come and talk to you tonight about the $15 minimum wage, but of course, if you know anything about us, we have to do it differently. So that's what we intend to do. And the question we have about the $15 minimum wage that we want you to think about this evening is, what is the end game with it? Is it just simply $15 and then we've won something? And I think all of you, if you're rational, intelligent people, you know that can't be it, right? Right. Because $15 is not nearly enough for people to support a family on. So we know that's not it. So what is the point of $15 an hour? What is the objective with talking about that? Well, it depends on, I guess, how you came in the room. If you're a reformist activist, then you probably see $15 an hour as a tactic to get people to support your agenda, whatever it is. Hopefully it's a principled one. If you're one of the many people in Portland who floats from event to event with not a real focus, then you probably see it as a way to come to a celebrity event and feed off the energy that this kind of thing generates. There you go. If you're an undercover police officer in here, then you probably see it as an opportunity to see who's engaged in the radical movement in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. But if you're a revolutionary, and I'm going to define what a revolutionary is for me and for us. A revolutionary is someone who is 100% opposed to the capitalist system and wants to see it destroyed. Woo! Yeah. And I have to say that because everybody that says they're socialist isn't saying the same thing. Amen. So we have to be clear about what that means. So if you're a revolutionary, what $15 an hour in any issue has to be, it has to be about giving people a quality living so we can take care of our families, but also has to include a couple of other components. The first one of those components is we have to look at this in the context of how we evaluate labor in this society. Like the way we're trained in these bourgeois institutions is that if you go to school and you get a law degree, you go to medical school, you go to graduate school, you know more, so consequently you should make more. Isn't that how we're trained? Yeah. That's how we're trained. And I'm not bagging on you because I'm a slave with a master's degree, so I'm not bagging on you if you have one. But I'm saying that's our training in this bourgeois system. And this question of the $15 wage gives us an opportunity to challenge that corrupt analysis by saying we should evaluate labor based on the priority and value that the people who carry it out bring to our lives. So most of you, I know many of you probably need to be on a therapist's couch a whole lot of your life. But most of us, maybe once or twice in your life, you may do that, right? Most of you, maybe once or twice, you might hire a lawyer, but that's it. And most of you probably don't even go to a doctor even if you need to. So you don't even deal with these people much in your life. But every day you go to the supermarket and you get groceries that were stocked for you. Every day somebody's putting gasoline in your car. Every day you're eating out and people are serving you and cleaning up after you. So who has more value in your life? Those low-wage workers. So this $15 an hour question gives us the opportunity to pay homage to those people who make this society run and to respect them for their contributions. Woo! Woo! Yeah! Yeah! Woo! Our struggle, the working class struggle in the United Snakes of America to the world, working class community. Because I gotta tell you all, the working class community in the world today is not that rugged white contractor man. That's not what it is today. From the World War II, that's not what it is. The working class face today is women, poor women. It's African people. It's indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. It's Asian people. That's who it is. And the most dynamic things happening in the working class movement are happening in those communities. That's no accident. I told you, I'm a Pan-Africanist. And I've lived in Africa, and I've done labor organizing over there, and I've seen with my own eyes where you don't get arrested when you organize against the boss in Guinea, West Africa. You get shot at. So the class contradictions are intense there. So this allows us to link up with that struggle, which we should do, because the U.S. is not the center of anything.
Yeah.
You need to get that out of your mind.
Yeah.
Woo. So the last thing that I want to say, and I'm a revolutionary, so I can't be hypocritical. I don't believe in electoral politics, y'all. I don't believe in integrating in the capitalist system, but we have got to learn to work together even if we don't agree. We've got to learn how to do that. So that's the reason why I'm here. I'm an organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and we're recruiting dozens of African youth here into the African Revolution in this town, in your town, and it's happening. We can't even orientate them fast enough. So that's my work. But the important point is that we've got to build a movement. None of this that we're talking about is going to succeed if we don't have a mass movement. And that's where we've got to learn to work together. And I've been organizing in this organization this next month, 30 years. So one thing I have learned is that you have got to be where people are. People don't come from, they don't start from just being in bourgeois society and become revolutionaries the next day. That's a process people have to engage in. So you take people where they are. So my final message here this evening is we have got to get every woman, every man, every child, every dog, cat in an organization working for justice. We don't have to worry right now about what that or in Portland, people are a trip, oh, you're this, you're that. I come from the gang culture. So I know gang culture when I see it, even in Portland, even in the activist community, even the so-called revolutionary community in Portland. I know gang culture when I see it. We have got to get around that, y'all, and understand you've got to work with people where they are. Woo. And you've got to understand how to speak their language. So we've got to get people in organizations. It doesn't matter right now what organization it is. But if you get them involved and they can see the day-to-day work, then they can come to understand what you're talking about. They can come to understand the concepts you're talking about. It's a tactic to raise people's consciousness. So the last thing I want to say is we got to get everybody involved in an organization working for justice. And I know a lot of you in here ain't in no organization.
Yep.
You just flow from event to event.
Yep.
What's going on tonight? Okay, that's what I'm doing. We'll never be successful like this. You can't fight. The Koch brothers have billions of dollars.
Yep.
They're the second largest employer in the United States after Walmart.
Yep.
You can't defeat them. The only way we can defeat them is by organization.
Amen.
That's the only way we can do it.
Woo!
So we've got to get everybody involved in some organization other than watching the Super Bowl and having Super Bowl parties or American Idol. We've got to get people involved in this process. And the way we do it is we stop talking about what you shouldn't be doing that, and you encourage people to do what they're ready to do, and then if you're a smart and skilled organizer, you bring them along to the path that you want them to go to.
Bingo.
And they make that decision on their own.
Bingo.
But if you don't really organize, you don't understand what I just said. That's the problem right now in this movement. We've got to build a mass movement. So I'm telling you, join some organization. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't know a whole lot about socialist alternative, but I'm saying if you ain't in the organization, you shouldn't leave here unless you join now.
Yeah.
Join some.
Woo! Right on.
Organizations are here, you should join one of them.
There you go.
If you don't join those organizations, you should join. I just came here to see Kshama speak, and I wish this African would shut up organization. And get that going tonight. And organize whoever you're talking to do something to combat this vicious, backward, decadent system that we live in. Because that's the only way we will do it. We won't do it any other way. If you can do it as an individual, we got to stop talking in Portland like I'm going to go get a farm, and I'm going to go out and farm and grow the food off the land. Look, I grew up in inner city projects, y'all. You talk like that to me, I'm like, that's a bourgeois fantasy. We'll never. And when African people die, we don't get inheritance, we get debt. So I don't even understand what you're talking about when you talk to me like that. So you got to understand, and I'm just talking to you about it. I know y'all are not used to hearing Africans, so I know it's hard, but get used to it, because you're going to start hearing us more and more in this town. Get ready for it. So join organizations working for justice. That's the message this evening. Forward ever, backwards never. Mida Osi, always ready to contribute to revolution.
Yeah, and then there was a standing ovation by all, 100 people in there, and it was absolutely amazing. And the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm going, yeah, can you hear me? Like, yeah. you could hear my Mystery Science Theater commentary. Yeah, shit, yeah.
It's like you're in church or something.
Yeah, right. And it's like, well, the funny thing is that was in a church.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well, there you go. But the reality is if you were digging what Ajum, it's hard to pronounce his name, and I've just learned it. Ajumu Umi, the organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party here in Portland, for doing it for 30 years, as he mentioned. If you're digging what he's saying, which I absolutely am, and you're reading people like Chris Hedges and Derek Jensen and Richard D. Wolf and Howard Zinn and Dr. Cornel West, and I mean you're on board, then you might like this show if you're just watching us for the first time, because this is our kind of thing, So
challenging the status quo. His anger is very palpable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on a consistently weekly basis, and all of our shows are posted at the website, filterfreeradio.com. Folks who've been tuning in for 2.5 years know this show is all about being fed up with the status quo, organizing how we change that status quo, mobilizing you and I, we the people, to get active and be that change. And during that one night, I can promise you, Ajumu Umi reached at least one person and made a difference in one person's life last Thursday in Portland. And I'm telling you, I'm feeling it because I felt it happen. And
I feel it.
It was great stuff. And, a lot of people, stood up, and it was a standing ovation. And I mean, I would argue best speech of the evening, second only to Kshama Sawant herself, and that is not to diminish Kshama Sawant's campaign manager in any way, who also spoke, or Nicholas Caleb, the city council candidate here in Portland, who also spoke. I'm going to be sharing some of that with you as well as we go through this program, so stay tuned. But yeah, Scott, your thoughts real quick, and then we'll run to the break at the bottom of the hour.
Well, that guy makes me a little bit uncomfortable, quite frankly.
It's pushing the envelope, right?
I mean, his anger is palpable, and quite frankly, his cadence is a little bit of Malcolm X-esque. If you ever heard Malcolm X speak, it's sort of a similar cadence. Mm-hmm. The whole notion, it's a hard concept to grasp, really, that everything is a lie.
Right.
I just got done listening to Chris Hedges' most recent lecture, where he talked about war and gave firsthand accounts of war and what it means when veterans come home from war. And the biggest thing that they discover after having gone to war and coming back is that everything that they know about American society is a lie. We're not virtuous, we're not special, we're not trying to spread democracy. We are a violent, evil empire who kills and oppresses minorities half around the world in the name of corporate profits. And we use the poor among us to do it with the barrel of their gun. Under the guise of getting a college education if you join the military.
Or a remote-controlled flying killer robot.
Right.
Right.
And so the point is that the society in which we live in is not what we think it is. And it's one of those things, and Hedges talks about this in his speech, and you can see it today, by the way, on truthdig.com. And we've talked about this before. It's that, and you and I actually talked about this before the show, it's that telling people uncomfortable truths that they do not want to hear.
Yeah.
Is almost impossible because they will kill the messenger.
Right.
They don't want to hear it, even whether you're right or wrong. It's all about you're an asshole. I don't want to hear from you. That being said, there are those who do want to hear it.
No,
I know, right? That's fine.
I love you, buddy. Yes, go on.
But there are those. I mean, there is a need to hear it, and there are those who want to hear it. And the bottom line is that, right or wrong, the truth is out there, and it will radically change your opinion on society. And so what these individuals are doing at this point, and also I would encourage people to look at the article today by Chris Hedges on truthdig.com, because his article today is in fact titled "The Crime of Peaceful Protest," and of course profiles an Occupy Wall Street activist who's being criminally charged for being beaten and brutalized by a police officer, and she is of course the one on trial, not the officer who beat and brutalized her. And that's the society we live under. We don't have justice. I believe you have a good quote on the top of our Facebook page by him where everything is inverted, basically, is the gist of it.
It's, we now live in a nation where doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, the press destroys information, and the banks destroy the economy. And I think I missed one, but I'm just doing it from memory.
And that's a good one. That's pretty good, though. And that's the gist of it. That's the inverted system in which we live under, and yet we have people that get up and go to work every day and buy their brands and products and participate in society in a manner in which they think everything is just fine. Thank you very much. I'm going to buy this next thing, and I'm so worried about buying this thing. And oh my God, isn't that a great phone? And then can you believe my team is winning? It's delusional.
Yeah.
And it's the whole notion of if you know your history and you understand the downfall of civilizations, whether it's the Mayans, the Greeks, the Romans, or even any Western civilization like obviously the German Empire, you understand that these things don't happen overnight. They happen gradually, and they happen very subversively, and to the point where they infiltrate people's consciousness, and they don't. I'm sorry, to the point where they don't actually reach your visceral consciousness. It's just
right.
Sort of
it just kind of glosses over.
Right. It's just this is okay. Oh well, this is too bad. Well, and we move on. Well, it's cumulative. And eventually it comes to a head. And we are rapidly approaching that tipping point, if you will, in our society where it becomes overt, where we no longer have justice, clearly. And you experience it firsthand, and you're like, oh, wow, this is really bad. And I think what this guy exemplifies in his work and his speech is the necessity of radicalism at this point in our society.
Yes.
To move the culture out of its beaten path.
If I can, we do have to run to a break, but this gives me a fine segue to mention one of my favorite personal radio shows, and I'm so happy that he's now back on the air, at the Adam Klugman Show on X-Ray FM here in Portland. I got to talk a little bit about what Adam was talking about, and also what he was sharing that Chris Hedges was talking about, and it all relates to what we're talking about next on Filter Free Radio.
FilterFreeRadio.com. Filter Free Radio. They only talk about missing airplanes. That's it. That's all they talk about, seriously. Missing Airplanes 101. Filter Free Radio.
Hey friends, I'm Jacob Dean of Filter Free Radio, your home for unfiltered news, activism, and sustainable solutions. Listen or watch Filter Free Radio live Mondays, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern at our official website, filterfreeradio.com. It's a show about changing the status quo and mobilizing we the people to get active, participate, and be that change. Filter Free Radio is also available for free on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Facebook, Twitter, on Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com, and Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app. And now you can hear Filter Free Radio on We Act Radio, 1480 AM in Washington, D.C., weactradio.com. Help us be the change and make a difference. Please visit filterfreeradio.com and keep up the good fight.
The corporate powers that be keep thinking we'll stay hitched to their plow no matter how severely they lash us economically and kick us politically. But, to borrow one of George W.'s convoluted phrases, they're badly misunderestimating America's workaday people. As the Occupy Wall Street movement demonstrated, and as shown by the ongoing actions of fast food workers and others who've been shunted into poverty-wage jobs, we Americans are innately rebellious. In fact, from the Revolutionary Declaration of 1776 forward, rebellions are us. Shays' Rebellion in the 1780s, strikes by women mill workers in the early 1800s, the populist movement of the 1880s, and on into today's uprisings. We've never taken well to the moneyed powers grabbing more for themselves at our expense, and now they're grabbing more than ever. Wall Street elites, corporate profiteers, and inheritors of multi-billion-dollar fortunes are trying to divert our attention from their oligarchic greed by spending lots of money on PR campaigns, front groups, and politicians to tell us that big government is our problem. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. The ones knocking down the middle class and holding down the poor today are those same elites, profiteers, and heirs. The corporate media won't talk much about this reality, but a growing majority see it and is in a spreading rebellion against it, because after all, they're experiencing the abuse. This is Jim Hightower saying the great anthem by rocker Patti Smith pretty well sums up where we Americans are and where I think we're going. People have the power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the world from fools. Ordinary folks are awakening to the realization that the fools have seized power, and the folks are now making moves and movements to seize the fools by their short hairs and reclaim our dreams.
What do the corporate powers from Wall Street to Walmart have in common? They hate the Hightower Lowdown. You can see why at www.hightowerlowdown.org.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to The Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Your view is not being represented in this country because all of our views have been corrupted by money and politics. Remember, 94% of the time, the candidate who raises the most money wins.
That's the fact that we need to drive home constantly. It's all about the money. Dylan Radigan, you rock.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
Hi, this is Kenny Pick from Turn Up the Night. Here are some of the hijinks you can expect from my show. We just got done listening to several clips about the Romney fundraisers over the weekend, and I invented the murder finger. It's an offspring of the murder fist. It just happens to be the murder fist with the middle finger extended.
Well, I'm ahead of you because I've had a hate finger for many years.
Hate finger.
Hate finger. The man with the malcontent's touch. Yeah.
Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick, streaming live every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern at Radio or Not, Talk Radio 1, Progressive Blend Radio, and KennyPick.com.
Hey friends, Jacob Dean here with exciting news. You can now hear my show, Filter Free Radio, on the free Stitcher mobile app. Just visit our website, filterfreeradio.com, scroll down on the left-hand side, and click on the Stitcher logo to hear us on Stitcher. That's all there is to it. No syncing, no taking up memory on your device. Just filter-free radio on demand for you on the go. Plus, you can rate and review Filter-Free Radio on Stitcher. The more you rate, review, and share us, the higher we will rank on Stitcher, and that means the more people will discover Filter-Free Radio. It's never been easier to enjoy Filter-Free Radio and help us spread the word. Visit our website, filterfreeradio.com, and click on the Stitcher logo to hear us on Stitcher. Unfiltered radical truth-telling, anytime, anywhere. Thanks, and keep up the good fight.
This is Liberal Justice Radio.
They're the product of a sick society.
Liberal Justice Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott every Sunday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. We Act Radio, 1480 AM WPWC. WeActRadio.com.
And welcome back to the show. So good to have you on board with us. You can participate with the show however you'd like on the telephone at 503-746-TALK, 503-746-TALK, 503-746-8255. Emails go to Jacob at filterfreeradio.com, skeptical at filterfreeradio.com, tweet at filterfreeradio, and facebook.com/filterfreeradio are just a couple of the ways you can find the show. So good to be with you. We are live on radioornot.com, the home of Nicole Sandler, where, as the promo that we ran during the break said, sometimes you never know who or what you're going to hear when you tune into the Nicole Sandler Show. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. You are going to get to hear Mr. Skeptical Scott and Mr. Jacob Dean of Filter Free Radio. Wait for it. Cue it up there. Scott and I are going to be Scott and I are going to be doing the morning shift tomorrow morning live Tuesday. That's February 29th and Wednesday, February 30th at radioornot.com. And it's so good to have the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure to get to be with, the Nicole Sandler audience, which is a little bit bigger than ours. And she's on, SoFloRadio.com and TalkRadio1.com, a few other outlets as well. It's great to have that exposure to get to bond with her audience as well, even though we do this show live right now on radioornot.com and every week on radioornot.com as well. Brand new website over at radioornot.com. If you check it out, tell us how you like it. Get on the message board there, brand new message board. Nicole Sandler is filling in for Randy Rhoads all of this week, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And you may know that the Randy Rhoads show is going off the air in a couple of weeks. This is the last time Nicole Sandler is filling in for Randy Rhoads. So it's a week not to miss. Nicole in for Randy or us in for Nicole. Either way, you can't lose. It's a win-win-win all the way around, except for the loss of Randy Rhoads. But if you are surprised by the loss of Randy Rhoads, for example, and you haven't noticed the trend, also including the loss of KPOJ and KPTK and Green 960 or WVKO in Ohio, to name a few off the top of my head, there's a trend, and we've talked about that trend over the course of the last month, and it's all over the homepage of filterfreeradio.com right now, the Progressive Radio Northwest Forum, where I participated with Mark Taylor Canfield up in Seattle. We talked about the future of independent progressive media. We talked about how the corporate state will not sustain or promote or air anything that can work against its own best interest, especially progressive radio. And when you have progressive radio stations in the hands of Bain Capital-financed Clear Channel, you are not going to be around that long. And if you are doing a progressive radio show that's coming out of Clear Channel, or some other corporate conglomerate, then, look out, brother. So, but this is
no money in the truth, man. No money in the truth.
Yeah, exactly. But, there are people who can make it happen and walk a line and do, the balancing act and actually make a living doing it and own their own show independently, which, I got to give props to the people who do that for that. They do have control over their show, but they are maintaining certain positions to get that income coming in.
They're compromised.
So, like Scott and I talk about, you have to find those nonprofit, independent sources of information that you can trust. And we make it absolutely clear. This show is my opinion. This is Scott's opinion. This is our opinion, which is not paid for. It is not underwritten unless you're some sort of hippy-dippy, tree-hugging liberal that wants to advertise on our show, then maybe we could talk about it. But those days are coming, I think, in the future. That, donate, click on Filter Free Radio and donate kind of thing. Those days are coming. We'll get there. But for now, it's just tell the word, spread the love, like us on Facebook, tweet us, and we really appreciate it. We love the conversation. Again, our telephone number, 503-746-TALK. Take your calls. All callers go to the front of the line. You can call us live, and you can call us anytime 24/7. Leave your comments, your voicemails, your thoughts, your ideas if you disagree with the show, and we will play them on the following show, on the following podcast. So if you're a podcaster, you can still participate that way, and we will get you on the air.
And I think more important too is not about us.
No, it's not about us.
It's not even about necessarily the things we say. It's about the people who have influenced us. It's about, and not even about them per se either. It's about the information. It's about knowledge. It's about understanding. It's about personal growth, and it's about changing our society. And I think even if you disagree with us 100%, at least I've challenged, or at least we've challenged some of your, widely held beliefs. Let's hope. But you have to be open to these things, and opening your mind and challenging what you perceive and what you've always believed to be true, or understood to be true, and realizing that, hey, maybe I am wrong. Make a 180-degree turn on my opinion. And that's what's most important, and not necessarily us as people or necessarily some of the things we say.
Right. On that note, I want to, and I'm with you, brother. I'm just looking at the clock and I'm like, wait a minute, I've got a 12-minute long Kshama Sawant clip I got to play, and I've got 15 minutes till the top of the hour. So
12 minutes.
but it's a good one. And the reason why I'm going to leave it all together and kind of unfiltered for you is because, first of all, I think it's one of the only videos that I can find of the event around on YouTube. And again, I posted all of our videos, and you can watch everything in its entirety on our homepage at filterfreeradio.com. I want to share this with you because not everybody can show up, on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at the little community church in Northeast Portland. Not everyone can show up Monday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern at filterfreeradio.com. And I understand that. This is also why all of our podcasts are free. And this is why I try to attend as many events, organizations, demonstrations, protests as I can and showcase and highlight that activism for you. Not as only a, hey, look what I'm doing, because it's like Scott said, it's not about, hey, look what I'm doing. It's about, let me share this with you because I know you're maybe in Chicago, maybe you're in Florida, maybe you're in Washington, D.C., and you can't make it to the gig Thursday night in Portland. Here we go, right? And this is your free ticket in the door, okay? Maybe you should consider going over to votesavant.org and helping them retire their campaign debt, which, by the way, they took not a dime in corporate money. They only acquired about $10,000 total in their campaign. They won. She is elected. She is the city council member of Seattle. And they, as of Thursday on April 24th, they had raised in the ballpark of around $6,000. And again, the goal was about $10,000. So, and they had the big national conference. So I'm sure they raised a couple of bucks there, but I'm sure they still need your help. And all, independent, operations like that need your help as well. Nicole Sandler needs your help. We need your help. Kshama Sawant needs your help. Chris Hedges needs your help. Hell, you name it. Common Dreams and Democracy Now!, they all need our help. So we have to show up because, we use them on a daily basis.
Don't forget the Real News Network.
Yeah, the Real News Network, Paul J., therealnews.com. Good stuff, man. It's all there. It's we need Mark Taylor Canfield. Send Mark Taylor Canfield $5 if you like his reporting. I mean, seriously, that is how the future of independent media, the future of independent journalism will be sustained. If you like Glenn Greenwald's reporting, send him $5, even though he gets a lot of money in speaking fees. I'm just saying.
Maybe not Glenn Greenwald. He's doing okay on his own, but still.
Yeah, right.
Point.
Right.
All right, man. 12 minutes is up.
Yeah. So let's play this clip, and this is going to take us. This is going to take us to the top of the hour here, and then after this, I've got to share a brilliant new Lee Camp moment of clarity with you. Have a little, lighthearted laugh about things. But this is an extended clip, the first half of the Kshama Sawant speech in Portland on Thursday. And if you want to watch the whole thing, it's at filterfreeradio.com. Check out 15now.org. Thanks to 15now.org for hosting the event and organizing, and Portland Socialist Alternative, and to Kshama Sawant, and to Nicholas Caleb, who we're going to be getting to in just a few minutes, and everyone else who participated. Here we go. Here's the star of the show. And don't forget, I still have to share with you the exclusive interview that I got with Kshama Sawant, council member Kshama Sawant, our exclusive interview about her inspiration and motivations. That's coming up soon. Here we go. Socialist Seattle council member Kshama Sawant. Enjoy.
being here, and thank you for all your activism and Building 15 now. I cannot apologize to you enough for making you all wait, and you have no idea how much I appreciated your patience.
That's okay.
Yeah.
The whole topic of the headlines in Seattle today has been about the mayor's committee and what they did do or did not do. But what the corporate media will systematically leave out in their narrative is that we would not be talking about $15 an hour had it not been for grassroots efforts. We made this happen. The mayor of Seattle will not want to admit it, but we know the truth, that it was fast food workers, the labor movement that made CTAC Prop 1 happen, and our historic campaign to get a socialist elected to Seattle City Council.
Woo!
And look how there can be tidal waves of change even in short periods of time. When we launched our campaign last year, it had been only a few months since the fast food workers in New York City had courageously marched out of their jobs demanding 15 and a union. And I would like to take a moment for all of us to imagine the tremendous courage that you need as a low-wage worker when you have no other cushion in your life, nothing else, nothing and nobody else to stand by you, to take your life in your hands, know that your employer will retaliate against you, that you will probably lose your job, your only source of livelihood, and yet to do that, not just for themselves, but for everybody else among the working class. That's the real solidarity that is latent amongst us in the working class that we have to bring to the fore. And the fast food workers have shown far, far more courage than I could ever show. And I really want to salute them with an applause. The social conditions obviously came from the capitalist system, but the courage to speak out against it, the willingness to stand out against the status quo, really is built in by the system, and it all started in this age today for us. It started with the Occupy movement, and despite all the many disparaging stories in corporate media about the unwashed young people who just needed to go and get a job, Occupy did us such a tremendous service. Occupy ended the silence on economic inequality and injustice. And in 2012, in the wake of the winding down of Occupy, when all people, whether you want to call them liberal, left, progressive, whatever, were all told by the Democratic Party establishment, you better stop all this and hunker down and do GOTV, get out the vote for Obama, get out the vote for all the Democrats, because that's what you're supposed to do as a good liberal. Obama and the Democratic Party establishment has betrayed us on every count. Whether you talk about...
Yeah! Woo! Yeah!
Whether you talk about deportations or domestic surveillance or income inequality or the Keystone XL pipeline and climate change, we have seen nothing change. Instead, there has been an intensification of attacks against public education. And I can tell you firsthand, because I'm a community college teacher and I have seen our budgets being squeezed out. 70% of the union I belong to is adjunct faculty, including myself. We don't know from one quarter to the next if we're going to have a job. We have no benefits, no question of health care. So we're not just talking about fast food workers, we are talking about a whole array of the 99% that has been completely left behind, being pushed into the darkness of the race to the bottom, while the millions, and not just millions, but billions, and not just billions, but trillions are being accumulated by the real minority at the top. And that is somehow being justified by both parties. And in 2012, when we were being told that, Socialist Alternative decided we're not going to simply argue against the Democrats in principle, we're going to show what a real independent working class candidate looks like. And we ran against the Democratic Speaker of the House, Frank Chop, and we stunned the establishment by our temerity to run against the most important and the most powerful, arguably the most powerful Democrat in the state, and we got 29% of the vote.
Woo!
That's 20,000 votes. Now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we took that momentum into our campaign for city council. At the same time, the CTAG battle was starting to shape up. And look, as I was saying, look how quickly things changed. At this time last year, people were laughing at us. The media and the political pundits who've been hyperactive since we got elected were poo-pooing this idea of $15 an hour. And, let alone the idea of an about socialist being elected. That was beyond the pale. And we put this on the agenda. We ran on a campaign of $15 an hour minimum wage for all workers in Seattle, taxing the rich to fund mass transit and education, and affordable housing and rent control. They said none of this would happen. None of this would see the light of day. And yet, towards the sort of halftime of the campaigning season, we could see that something was changing. And just before the campaign ended, less than a month before election day, the mayor, the person who's now the mayor, Ed Murray, who was running for mayor last year, came out in support of $15 an hour. And this, my friends, is not a victory for the Democratic Party establishment. This is a victory for us because we forced them to stop ignoring it. We made it impossible. We made it politically unviable for the leading mayoral candidate to ignore this. They were afraid that they might actually lose the election if they did not come out in support of 15. That's the power of majority opinion.
Yeah. Woo!
Yeah, you hear that guy in the front row going, yeah, that's this guy right here. And we're going to share more of the fantastic speech from Kshama Sawant, as well as my exclusive interview with the Seattle council member. The reality here is the huge chasm between the richest top 1%, not even really the 1%, because those of us, as we talked about last week, who talk about the 1%, we don't even know what we're talking about. It's not about Gordon Gekko. It's about the Walmart heirs and dynasty wealth. But like the top 1% and the top, 0.001%, it's that chasm between those guys and the rest of us, and that is widening. And the corporations are destroying the environment, and the U.S. government is deporting record numbers of people. Clearly, the corporate politicians have failed the 99%, and in response, nearly 100,000 voters elected Kshama Sawant to Seattle City Council as an independent socialist, and she did not accept a dime in corporate cash. And now, council member Kshama Sawant is leading the movement to raise the minimum wage to the minimum of where at least it should be. At least we can start the conversation at $15 an hour. And that movement is growing strong in Seattle, and it is growing strong and moving nationwide to Portland, to San Francisco, Washington, D.C. It's growing, and it's going to take us to make it happen. When we rise up and we participate, we will make a difference. And this is another fine example. More unfiltered, radical truth-telling, changing the status quo, mobilizing the people to be the change. Filter-free radio, Jacob Dean, Skeptical Scott. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott, now streaming every Sunday, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern at weactradio.com.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
But I just don't subscribe to the common memes, and I don't subscribe to either political parties anymore because they don't represent us. They represent, well, their own interest, obviously, and furthering their own interests, and furthering the interest of wealthy financiers who obviously pay for them to get elected, and that's who they serve. So what do you do in this situation where obviously changing the players doesn't change the game? It's like you can vote, but don't spend more than 5 minutes on it. Then the time it takes to go to the polls and pull the lever and then move on, and then get back out in the streets and protest with your signs and raise awareness and educate people.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
And that comes from reading. I mean, really, you have to start reading alternative critical thinkers, the Noam Chomskys of the world, the late Howard Zinn, people who document these things. Activism is what brings about change, and change comes from physically being in the streets. The biggest lie is that I'm an internet activist. Well, there's no such thing. You're either an activist or you're not, but there is no internet activist. It's like, well, that means you don't get out of the house, which means you don't really accomplish anything. You know, you're not organizing, you're not getting people together in the streets, you're not actually pushing for a real change that you want to see. You're just more talking about it online, which is the same as a conference call.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending.
This is your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. Sometimes you can tell something is important or pivotal when it starts showing up in multiple and very different areas of life. Like I imagine when the "that's what she said" plague started just taking over America. It was one thing when you heard it from a friend, but the moment you heard it from, like, your dentist, you knew it was something serious that wasn't going away easy. Okay, while I stick this tool in your mouth, this other thing is gonna suck out the spit. That's what she said. Right? No, it doesn't really work on that one, but you get the point. Well, there's a trend that's steadily spreading across disciplines, genres, and peoples. That trend is a call for revolt from the current system that will, without a shadow of a doubt, pillage this globe until there's nothing left. And according to my calculations, that nothing left moment is in February. So, we should get on that. This week alone, we've seen this call from a pop culture icon and from a scientific model, neither of which are the normal places you hear call for revolutionary change. In an article by Naomi Klein this week, she describes geophysicist Brad Werner's advanced computer model, which addresses, and these are his words, whether we're fucked. Apparently, in his computer model, Werner used system boundaries, perturbations, dissipation, attractors, and my old favorite, bifurcations, to come up with a complex systems theory. Now, if you were to ask me, I would say with great certainty that dude made up those words. But apparently, they're real words. So what did this computer model find? Well, to quote Naomi Klein, global capitalism has made the depletion of resources so rapid, convenient, and barrier-free that Earth-human systems are becoming dangerously unstable. When pressed as to whether we're fucked, Werner responded, more or less. Well, sounds like Professor Werner is not much fun to have at cocktail parties. He is off my list. He is off my list. I will replace him with fellow hairy comedian Russell Brand, who knows how to keep a party rocking.
Pointing out that
You're calling for revolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm calling for change. I'm calling for genuine alternatives. The time is now. These movements are already occurring. It's happening everywhere. We're in a time where communication is instantaneous, and there are communities all over the world.
Ah, shit! At 2 brand day? Oh, man, what the fuck? Well, at least Russell Brand sees some hope. You're probably wondering, does Mr. Science Says We're Fucked see any hope? Or is he just a negative Nancy? Yes, Warner said there was a single dynamic in the model that offered some hope against the terminal ransacking of Earth. That dynamic is resistance, meaning, quote, groups of people who adopt a certain set of dynamics that does not fit within the capitalist culture, meaning environmental direct action, protest, blockades, and sabotage, unquote. Basically, when a profiteering greed monkey says, we're going to lay down some fracking pipe, people have to respond, that's what she said! Oh, just remember to also go fuck yourself. There's only 3 things you need to know to understand that getting to this tipping point was inevitable. Number 1, our capitalist system requires infinite growth. Because of the ever-growing debt that is built in, it's built in. Once our system stops growing, it falls apart. Number 2, the system seeks profit over all else. It will never, ever move towards making a better world. It will only move towards profit. In the times where it has created a better world, it was a lucky side effect. In fact, corporations are legally obligated to seek profit. Legally, it's in the law. Nowhere in the law does it say, and don't forget to look after the salmon. Yeah, the wild salmon. Look after those fellas, too. Number 3, we have finite resources. The system cannot grow forever, but it has to. Just like a hot dog eating competition, the rules are keep eating. Even if there were no time limit, eventually you'd run out of hot dogs, but the rules would still say keep eating, so then you'd have to turn to your competitor and eat him. This moment we're now at, or almost at, was inevitable all along. Sure, if we had a bigger planet or shittier technology, it might have taken longer, but still, it was inevitable. And now, the we're fucked scientific model says we have exactly 1 chance of fighting back. Revolt. Big, small, physical, mental, revolt against profit, revolt against advertising, revolt against corporate news and consumerist amusement, revolt against a way of life that isn't working for almost anyone anymore. You can feel it in the air, everywhere, from the arts to the sciences to pop culture. It's in us, it's growing, and it feels so good. That's what she said. And that's been your moment of clarity. Read Naomi Klein's article. I beg of you. It's great. The link is in the description. Also, if you want to become part of the Moment of Clarity team without giving money, just go to donateyouraccount.com/Lee Camp. It takes like 20 seconds. You never have to think about it again, and yet you'll be helping Moment of Clarity every single day. The song here at the end is Chains by Rooftop Revolutionaries. Keep fighting.
This is Liberal Justice Radio.
Forget it, man, and get with the countdown. Shake this square world and blast off for Kicksville.
Liberal Justice Radio.
Filter. It's time for news, opinion, and ass kicking from Filter Free Radio. Better than news, better than talk. Giving the finger to mainstream media. Who's got the goods? They've got the goods. It's Filter Free Radio. FilterFreeRadio.com.
When I talk about resistance, I think we have to stand up now and carry out acts of nonviolent resistance.
Because the truth is, we do have power.
We live in revolutionary times, but the counter-revolution is winning.
Sounds like a case of the Mondays.
Live Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. FilterFreeRadio.com.
This is my favorite show. We have been given an opportunity to make a new beginning.
you.
And I think it's very important for us to start to build a culture of resistance because what we're doing isn't working, clearly. It's our job to very coldly assess reality and then figure out how to respond.
Your number one source for unfiltered truth, analysis, and solutions. FilterFreeRadio.com.
Welcome back to the show. Second hour. So good to have you on board, broadcasting live at FilterFreeRadio.com. Also live on RadioOrNot.com. We are also broadcasting live on Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app, which will soon be Indie Media Weekly, which you can find also a link to Indie Media Weekly at FilterFreeRadio.com as well. We are also broadcasting on We Act Radio, 1480 AM WBWC in Washington, D.C., and streaming on weactradio.com. However you are joining us, it is so good to be with you, working hard to make real change happen, and this is what it's all about. If you were joining us or listening before the break, I attended the 15now.org event and fundraiser for Kshama Sawant and 15now.org organization and Socialist Alternative and Nicholas Caleb for City Council in Portland. The website for my good friends in Portland need to check out Caleb for Council, and hopefully we can get an interview with Nick coming up soon. I'm looking forward to it, so we will see. I did give him a card. I did meet him. I shook his hand and said, I loved your speech, man. It was good stuff. We'll get to it. And also, if you're just joining us, you missed a fantastic speech from Ajumu Umi. And Scott and I are definitely, more in line with Ajamu's points, and I would argue, I speak for myself, I don't want to put words in Scott's mouth, but I'm more in line with what Ajamu was saying rather than
You hear that Homeland Security and NSA and FBI? Jacob Dean is a revolutionary.
Well, my point is, and I've always maintained a nonviolent, strict, moral, higher standard. The Jesus or the Martin Luther King or, the Gandhi, if you will, etc. I mean, I'm not trying to compare myself to those people. I'm just saying this is kind of where I'm coming from. And
well, if you read Hedges' article today, you'll realize that it doesn't matter if you're nonviolent or not. The fact that you're a threat to the status quo makes you a danger.
Right. And, one of the things we were talking about earlier and I forgot to follow up on was the Adam Klugman show. And what I love about Adam Klugman's show on X-Ray FM in Portland, he used to be on Mad as Hell, or he used to have his own show called Mad as Hell in America. But what I love about what Adam's doing is he's really asking us to, be the mirror and look in the mirror and take that, inward focus step and get us to challenge our own beliefs and our own ideas and where we're coming from. And then he was playing one of the recent shows I heard. Adam was playing some clips from an interview that he had with Chris Hedges on his show. And Chris Hedges said something that really struck me as interesting and fascinating and something that I never really thought about before. But when you stop and think about it, you're like, oh, yeah, that's absolutely right. At least I agree with it. And that is the idea that we're not holding these, so-called radical, which I would argue are really, ideas that most people have. There's really nothing really different.
It's common decency, really.
Right. And it's, it's virtues that we've lost, but it's nothing unique. And I would just argue that, these so-called radical positions that I have, and Chris Hedges talks about, we don't hold these positions to make huge, all-at-once revolutionary change, because if it were to happen like that, then you would have a huge revolutionary backlash and there would be tons of violence, and that is clearly not the solution. The solution is to hold these revolutionary positions and ideas and to maintain them while making incremental small changes in our own lives, in our own worlds, in our own small local communities, growing our own garden in the backyard, growing our own vegetables, because, growing your own foods, printing your own money, and, just listen to the Ron Finley TED Talk, and
forming coalitions. It's about making radical change in life. Just remember that every time you use paper towels, or even toilet paper for that matter, but it's a hard thing to give up toilet paper. Paper towels. You can give up paper towels. You can go back to the days when everyone had dish rags. Remember those days? Paper towels give money directly to the Koch brothers. Okay, these are the very people we have to boycott and divest from. And so stop buying paper towels. Or at least wean yourself off of them somehow. Start using dish rags again. And that's a very, very infinitesimal act, but it's something that I personally done. And you start doing things like that, and just one thing at a time. And eventually you radically change your life, and you cut yourself off from these systems of oppression that we're all slaves to. I mean, let's face it. You tear off a paper towel, you wipe your mouth, wipe your countertop down with it, throw it away. Don't think twice about it. But that's money, that's dead trees, that's killing the environment, that's global warming, that's giving money to wealthy billionaires who are destroying the planet. And it's just a paper towel.
Right.
Okay. So that's just one small example, but there are many more others like that. And you can do that. It's very simple to do. It requires willpower.
And, we've had conversations. We have these conversations all the time. A couple weeks ago, we had on good friend of the program, Snark Y2K, to talk about, some people don't have a yard or a backyard or a front yard. People are in, apartments or high rises or whatever. Well, you can grow your own food in your own apartment. You can create, vertical gardens kinds of things. And so we've talked about these kinds of things before, but I want to play, I've got a couple of things lined up. I want to play a little bit of Nicholas Caleb's speech, because I really think it's important that everyone gets their own Kshama Sawant. And I want to play a little bit more of the Kshama Sawant speech, and I want to play the exclusive interview that I did with Council Member Kshama Sawant as well. Let me go ahead and let's throw it back to Kshama Sawant's speech, the ending of the speech here in Portland last Thursday, the 15now.org event, right before the national conference. And then I'll share my exclusive interview with her. And then I've got some folks I think that want to call into the program, 503-746-TALK. We'll take your calls as well. Here is the rest of the Kshama Sawant speech.
And when I say we, I don't just mean our campaign or socialist alternative, but I'm talking about working people in Seattle in general who have embraced the question of $15 an hour and are coming out more and more and saying, no, this is what we need. A recent opinion poll that was conducted, a randomized poll, showed that nearly 70% of Seattle's likely voters prefer a strong $15 measure without any of the commonly demanded loopholes by business. It's very hard for big business, with all the millions of dollars that they have, it's very hard for them to speak against 70% of a city that wants something. And this has been the force that has stood us in good stead. And so the battle lines move from challenging the number 15 or the question of a minimum wage increase to another terrain. So now you started hearing businesses saying, oh, I've always been for 15. The mayor said this was his dream since he was a child. I'm all for 15. I agree with you that there should be a solution for income inequality. However, we have to do this thoughtfully. We can't ram it through like the extremist 15 now. We have to make sure that this does not kill businesses. And despite all the information that has been provided to them by economists from the two universities that I mentioned, this conversation has gone on until today, and it will go on beyond today. Now they're saying they'll support 15. However, we need tip credit, meaning if workers get tips on their job, then those tips can be counted as wages. No matter the fact that the states, Washington State's voters, already spoke in 1988 in large majorities, rejecting the idea of tip credit and demanding, this was the voters' mandate, demanding that all workers be held at the same minimum wage. They are using our battle for $15 an hour to overturn a victory that was already achieved by us in the past.
Yep.
We have to be vigilant against this.
Yes.
We cannot accept this simply because we're getting 15 in name. We have to stand against tip credit. The other thing they're talking about is healthcare credit. If you're enrolled in your employer's healthcare program, and if they spend a certain number of dollars per hour on your healthcare, then they can deduct that from your minimum wage. And we've said, look, we want workers to have 15 plus tips plus healthcare. What you're saying...
Woo!
What you're saying amounts to 15 minus tips minus healthcare. You can't take your healthcare card and buy a loaf of bread at the grocery store. You need wages. You need spendable dollars. We need the standards of living to be improved in a real way. We don't want a Swiss cheese 15. We want a real 15.
Yeah.
And so the committee has, gone on for 4.5 months without reaching a conclusion. But as we said today in our press conference, this was a foregone conclusion because this was an artificially appointed committee which brought together two groups with completely divergent goals. One group of labor and left which wants to improve the standards of living of workers and give them 15, and another group that is trying to ensure that they pull every trick out of the hat to make sure that their workers remain in poverty. The other thing they've been trying to do is to make sure that whatever phased-in 15 is passed does not have cost of living adjustments for workers until the phase-in period is over. You don't have to be a math graduate to know that if we let that happen, then it's not going to be a real 15. Washington state voters, again, through another initiative, spoke in great majorities in 1998 that minimum wage should be tied to inflation. Again, this is another way in which they're using the $15 struggle, our struggle, to undermine our past victories. We don't want a solution where it's one step forward and two steps back. We reject that. And we're showing them that we are vigilant. But our task now is to mobilize the movement to a heat that Seattle hasn't seen in a long time.
Woo!
And
woo! Yeah.
And you all have to be there with us on Saturday because we need you. We need you to win 15 in Seattle so that we can come back here and help you win 15 in Portland.
Yeah.
All right. Now activists have also filed ballot initiatives and charter amendments as a safety net for the workers in case the process of the mayor and the city council fails. The city council is supposed to be deliberating a possible ordinance on 15 during the months of May and June. They need to hear our voices. They need to hear our feet stomping on the streets of Seattle. They should not be able to forget for even a single moment who they are supposed to be accountable to. They have to be accountable to the workers of Seattle. And today, when the mayor went on his press conference to announce that he didn't have an announcement to make, he said that I am trying hard to reach a majority on the committee because we want a civil engagement in this process. I say there is nothing more civil than the working class rising up and demanding its rights.
Woo! Woo! Hey!
pressure on the City Council in the next several weeks to make sure that a strong $15 measure is passed as an ordinance. I will be doing whatever I can inside City Hall, but we have to work together outside City Hall because that is really going to determine what the council members will do. Because they have Starbucks lobbyists whispering in one ear and McDonald's lobbyists whispering in the other ear. So we have to be loud and clear. And the workers' movement will decide on Saturday, April 26th, whether or not to go ahead and start collecting signatures for one of the initiatives or amendments that have been filed. This is, think about it, my brothers and sisters. This is so beautiful. This is a real democratic process starting to unfold. It's still very, very early stages, but this is what we're fighting for. We don't want the higher echelons of power to be deciding our fates because we know how they're going to go. They're going to go the way our fates have gone this far, which have led us nowhere real fast. We need to fight against that. And the mayor, again, has several times spoken about, and not just him, many people in the political establishment, my colleagues on the city council have spoken quite eloquently on how if a ballot initiative or charter amendment goes on the ballot, that would divide the city. The most divisive and destructive thing has been this pervasive income inequality, where people are not able to pay for their basic needs.
Now, again, if you want to watch the whole video, the entire video of all of the speeches and everything, it's at filterfreeradio.com. And I do want to open up the comment line to folks who do want to comment. And I know those of you out there who do want to, 503-746 talk, as well as open that up to anyone, anytime, anywhere, as well. And Scott, you wanted to mention
Herman Cain.
Herman Cain. Oh, shuck it, duck it now.
Yeah, your boy, man. Your favorite presidential candidate.
I love Herman Cain.
Presidential candidate of the Daily Show. It was. They love that guy. He was such good material.
Right.
It's worth noting that he was the head of the restaurant association that was instrumental in exempting wait staff and people who receive tips from the minimum wage. So if you work in a restaurant, you make $2 an hour or less, or none at all, or even as other institutions. I know there's people who do vending at arenas and things like that who don't make any money, any wages, because they get all their money is based on tips. And so because you get tips, the theory is that your tips will actually equal greater than the minimum wage, and therefore you do not need to be paid a salary. However, that's not always the case. And in any case, Herman Cain was instrumental in having that happen. So it's important to remember these figures in our society who've done these things and where they come from.
Yeah, and as Herman Cain said himself, if you're not rich, blame yourself. Comment line is open, 503-746-TALK. It's not you, man. It's the system. I know. It's just, we're having fun too, right? 503-746-TALK. Comment line is open. Ask and you shall receive. Again, there's no one here. It's just us. So you're going to call. It's going to ring. We'll pick up and you're on the air. And we've got a caller live on the air. Hello. Tell us your name and what's on your mind.
Hello, Will from Chicago. Can you hear me?
Hey, it's Will.
Hey, Chicago. What's going on, brother?
Lots of things. I'll be brief because I know there's other callers. As I said earlier, a key thing to remember is that we must realize our own strength and have allies outside and within. I think what we are seeing is perhaps the beginning of a new progressive movement that cuts across broad issues. Too often progressives have been divided by self-identifying themselves on various issues, the environment, LGBTQ rights, civil rights, what have you.
Right.
But I think that a key thing we have to remember is that many successful social movements of the past were able to unite across various issues, the old populist and progressive movements. and I posted in the chat room on radionow.com. And remember, Nicole Sandler, along with several other good hosts, could use your support.
Yep. Thank you for mentioning that.
Today, right? Well, look. Nicole's under a lot of pressure. Stephanie Miller's under pressure. Norman Goldman, Bob Kincaid, Mike Malloy, Tom Hartman. A lot are feeling the pressure.
Yep.
But speaking of pressure, while working on a Facebook page for the Democracy Interactive chat room, where I'm also active, I found a story Common Dreams, where thousands of people shut down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., demanding for a higher minimum wage and to corporate welfare.
And Scott, you weren't there? Oh, disappointed in you.
I didn't even know about that. I confess. I haven't had internet until today.
I'm just giving you a hard time, bud.
Go to Common Dreams, but may I briefly read the first 4 paragraphs?
Yeah, please do.
Go for it.
Sure. This, by the way, as I always give credit, is by Lauren McCorley, staff writer, titled, Demanding Just and Sustainable Economy for All, Thousands March on Congress. Protesters rally at Capitol building to call for increase to minimum wage and to corporate giveaways. In an expression of a new populist energy, thousands of demonstrators shut down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. on Monday as they demanded a livable wage and end to the corporate domination of the national economy and politics. Under the banner, Battle for the Capitol, marchers carried puppets of corporate lobbyists swarming a 10-foot-high replica of the Capitol building as they blasted rising inequality in America and the outsized influence of big money during elections and in the halls of Congress. The protesters chanted, "Whose streets are streets?" This is what the new populist movement looks like, tweeted James Mum of the group National People's Action, which along with the Restaurant Opportunity Center and the National Domestic Workers Association organized the protest. So I think we are seeing people ready to respond.
Right.
I think that it is gaining critical mass, and we have to remember we need to be active in different ways, in ways that we're comfortable with. Some people are good organizers. Some people are good communicators. Some people may even be moved to do as was done in Portland, and run for city council or run for Congress. The key thing is we have to remember we are not alone. Why did Margaret Thatcher essentially say there's no such thing as society, they're only individuals? Because it is only as a society that we, the individuals, gain power to upset the plans of those who view themselves as our natural rulers.
Perfect.
I mean, this is a very old argument. We've been having it for thousands of years as a species.
Right.
And now there's more at stake as our environment degrades and poverty spreads. But I'm not here to sound the trump of doom, but rather say now is time to make a rallying cry and get out there, be active, and see what our own strength is. Because if we don't believe in our own capacity to change things, we're already raising the white flag of surrender to the Koch brothers and others who truly, truly do not care what we think and just see us as at best consumers and at worst cogs in their machines.
Amen, brother.
I love it.
You're spot on, Will. And you know, it's interesting you point this out. It's really like it's as old as time. I mean, it's always been the haves versus the have-nots. It's just become on steroids, and it's become global. In our case today, and I mean, a lot of people are waking up to it. And even, I mean, Ralph Nader was on Democracy Now! Today.
Yes, he was.
With Amy Goodman, and he has a new book out, believe it or not, called "Unstoppable: The Emerging Left-Right Alliance to Dismantle the Corporate State." And that's the title of his book. And he goes on to talk about how it's really obviously not a left-right paradigm. It's a very wealthy versus the rest of us paradigm. And anybody on any strata of conservative or liberal or whatever you want to consider it, realizes that it's really a fight for to take back our dignity. I mean, you name it, a livable wage, the common decency, and even just the basic living standards that we used to have, to take them back from these very wealthy who are oppressing us just for their own greed. And they become extremely greedy, and they become extremely oppressive as a result of their ability to control the money and to control our society as a whole, and of course our government, as well as our daily lives that we interact with in everyday, basic corporations. I mean, it's really just, if you work for a corporation, you know the corporate culture, and it's no longer, hey, well, we want what's best for you. We want what's best for you is best for the company. It's what's best for the company is best for you, which is the big lie that they tell everybody. And it's just, people are waking up, and I think you point out a really good point. One of the things I want to mention too is in Chris Hedges' article today, where he interviewed this woman, and what was her name? Cecily McMillan, and it's you sort of brought up the same point earlier, where she talks about her first experience where she was in Madison, Wisconsin, protesting, where everybody had an actual agenda and everyone was on the same page. It didn't matter who they were. And she said, police officers sat down to occupy the Capitol with us, along with teachers and the fire department. Everyone was walking around saying thank you to the police. And then when she got to Occupy Wall Street, there's drum circles and people walking around naked, and there was yoga, and she just thought, what the hell is this? But she came to realize that these people this was their first experience at rebellion, and that they didn't really know what they were doing or what they wanted, but they knew that something was wrong, that they had to do something. And so what you were saying before was you had to meet people on their own grounds, and understand where they're coming from in order to relate to them the struggle. And it is a struggle that we're all involved in, regardless of where we come from and our different backgrounds. But meeting on a common ground and a common understanding that if you're not a billionaire, then you're part of the struggle.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
it's really where it comes down to.
I'm going to bid both of you a good night. And
all right.
Talk to you soon.
Always appreciate the brilliant contributions
Will.
to the show, Will. Thank you so much, bud. I tell you what, we've got the comment line is blowing up. Folks are calling in, and we've got to run to a real short break here. We'll cut the break short. I'm only going to run the Space Dog Radio Report from spacedogradio.com, and then we'll get right back to your phone calls. So stay tuned and hang tight. Give us a call here in a couple of minutes at 503-746-TALK, 503-746-TALK. We'll be right back with your calls. And, of course, last but not least, saving the best for last, my exclusive interview with Kshama Sawant that's coming up next, Filter Free Radio.
Giving the finger to mainstream media. FilterFreeRadio.com.
Hello, this is the Space Dog from SpaceDogRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in to Filter Free Radio. FilterFreeRadio.com. Independent media must exist, and special thanks to Jacob Dean for partnering up with SpaceDogRadio.com. Hey, in case you missed any of the shows from last week on Space Dog Radio, here you go. From someplace over Boston, Massachusetts, USA, this is the Space Dog Radio Show. I'm Space Dog. So today we were talking about Senator Elizabeth Warren, who many of us think should run for the office of the President of the United States of America. Her new book is called A Fighting Chance and has many, many interesting points. I guess it says it all on page 2 of her book. Quote, I'm determined, fiercely determined to do everything I can to help us once again be the America that creates opportunities for everyone who works hard and plays by the rules. An America of accountability and fair play. An America that builds a future for not just some of our children, but for all of our children. From someplace over Toronto, Canada, this is a Space Dog Radio Show. Things get a little ridiculous in the corporate world in terms of what you can and cannot wear, and this may be one of the cases with this firing. A pilot who has been seen on CNN doing some flight simulator work discussing MH370, the missing Malaysian aircraft, Flight 370. So evidently, he's been on CNN quite a lot and has now been fired because he has shamed Canadians by dressing like a teenager, so his company says. Here's the question. Are you really going to fire a guy who's got so much experience that he's on CNN because he doesn't wear just the right kind of clothes? I mean, really? Here's something else from the website maybe they should take down after they fire this guy. Quote, we have been helping CNN with their investigative reporting of the missing flight MH370. CNN has been filming in our simulator, recreating scenarios to answer many questions of what have happened to the missing Malaysian Airlines Boeing 777 flight. Our prayers go out to the families of the missing crew and passengers. It goes on to talk about the flight that was missing, etc., etc. But they say nothing about firing this guy. From someplace over planet Earth's highest mountain, Mount Everest in Nepal, this is the Space Dog Radio Show. There was an avalanche last Friday. 16 Sherpas were killed. And the undercurrents there are pretty strong. 400 Sherpas who assist rich mountain climbers who want to top the biggest mountain in the world with the usual price tag of about $90,000 to do so have said enough is enough. 16 Sherpas killed, the worst disaster of its type on Mount Everest. And get this, these Sherpas help people climb the world's biggest mountains. They suffer, they die, and you know what most of them are assured? 40,000 rupees if they die. That's about $415. From someplace over Paris, France, this is the Space Dog on SpaceDogRadio.com. So today's topic, I threaten to do this show, and I usually do shows like this every once in a while, just have a good time with it. But I got this article from FactsAmazing.com, and the title was, Why Sex After Marriage Sucks. Familiarity breeds boredom. When you're stuck doing the same thing day after day, you're going to get bored. Granted, most married couples don't have sex every day, but it still can get stale after a certain period of time. Why the hell would you get married if you can't have sex every day? I don't understand the point of marriage if you can't have sex every day. Space Dog Radio, your remote location radio station, coming to you 24/7 around the planet and throughout the universe. From SpaceDogRadio.com. Listen up for more. Be safe, be happy, and I'll catch you next orbit.
From our nation's capital, Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott, Filter Free Radio on 1480 AM WPWC. We Act Radio, now streaming every Sunday, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern at weactradio.com.
And welcome back to the show. So good to have you on board with us. FilterFreeRadio.com is the website. You can find all of our past shows, all of our interviews, this conversation, and more, and it's all free. FilterFreeRadio.com. We're on RadioOrNot.com. Skeptical Scott and I are going to be in for Nicole Sandler live tomorrow morning at RadioOrNot.com and Wednesday morning at RadioOrNot.com. We'll post those podcasts on our website as well. And we're having the conversation about raising the minimum wage. We're inviting you to participate in the conversation. The comment line is open at 503-746-TALK, and your calls do go to the front of the line, which is why that break at the bottom of the hour ended up more in the corner of the hour, and it's all good. So I did have to take a break, though. Every once in a while you got to take a break. So sometimes it's good to be in control of your own independent media outlets, because then you can decide to tell the truth. You can decide to not take corporate cash. You can decide to call it like it is. You can decide to be the change and be those, revolutionary truth tellers that we need. And you can also decide to take a break when you need to take a break. So I appreciate you and everyone being there with us and participating in the chat room as well at radioornot.com. And before the break, we were speaking with Will from Chicago, and also Snork Y2K was calling in to the show during the break, and I missed the call, and but we got him back on the line now, calling in from the chat room there. Good friend Snork Y2K, and again, your comments and your calls always go to the front of the line at 503-746-TALK. Snork, brother, hope all is well, man, and good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to rant about paper towels, but first, one more rant, and that's one big hole in this whole conversation about minimum wage, and that is agriculture is exempt. They're not only exempt from minimum wage, they are exempt from safety. OSHA does not affect them.
Oh, yeah, that's right. People forget about them, the migrant workers as well.
Yes, people that are in a bus for migrant workers does not need to have chairs. They can sit on the floor. They can sit in folding chairs in a bus. There's hardly any safety. Now, in a factory, if somebody picks up a screwdriver more than 5 times in an hour, you basically have to have the screwdriver almost suspended to take away its weight. But in agriculture, people can bend at the waist all the way to the ground and pull little pieces of radishes out of the ground or whatever, small pieces of fruit at near ground level. That would never be acceptable. And if you did it in a regular factory, that person could sue and basically own the factory. But in agriculture, swarms of people have back injuries. Bending over like that for years and years caused not only injuries to the arms, back, and it also causes injury to the brain and cardiovascular system.
Oh, yeah, the Immokalee tomato pickers, and they're organizing is a good thing to look up online. People aren't familiar with them.
Si se puede.
Yeah, so it's no longer necessary that we can't adapt farming to have raised beds where the people aren't bending over so far.
Oh, that's an idea. Okay.
The next rant is paper towels.
Yeah.
I used to be a follower of the anti-paper towels as Skeptical Scott. However, 3 years ago, my eyes were opened.
Uh-oh. Wait for it.
It's called vermiculture. Worms convert all kinds of food waste that we currently put in dumps very efficiently if they have waste paper. So if we were more responsible and had a better regulated industry for paper towels, for instance, not bleaching them with materials that contain dioxin, just using water and putting the paper towels out brown and unbleached, and then because the forging, the process where you convert wood pulp to paper, does not require anything other than water if it's done correctly. It can be the water can be recycled almost endlessly with very little need for replacing the water, and the paper can be done with solar power. The growing of the trees helps to prevent carbon dioxide buildup in the atmosphere, and it provides an economic incentive for people not to cut down large forests. Well, even if they cut them down, at least to regrow them. And that regrowth, those nice sprouts coming up out of the ground, use so much carbon dioxide up and convert it to oxygen. So, and also even the choice, regulating the type of tree that gets grown. And if we were to use poplar or bamboo that creates wood fast, it would be just an incredible boon to our ecology and economy. And there's one more side effect of not using the paper towels. That is, it's far more. We have to stop using so much soap and water, and the water is getting to be the worst crisis. That we are using up our fresh water, and what we're not using up, we're contaminating with too much soap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm with you on that. And just as a side note, though, none of that's happening at the moment. It's so until those things take place. I mean, the use of paper towels just gives money to the Koch brothers, and as you pointed out,
if it's bleached, if it's bleached, it's bad.
Oh, yeah, they're all bleached.
And the other thing is before there is a government mindset to do the proper regulation, it's going to be bad to use paper towels.
Oh, okay. Well, so in other words, what you're saying is that as it stands now, yeah, it's a good thing to avoid, but there is a sustainable way to do it.
Right. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is to use the paper towels to avoid contaminating more water.
Right. Oh, yeah, I'm with you. I am conscious of that. I am actually aware that I am using more water because I don't use dish detergent anymore, and I do use Castile soap, which is a homemade soap using with lye and essential oils. But I do wash my hand, and I think I'm probably using more water than I normally would if I just use a paper towel. So that's kind of a catch-22.
To reduce the amount of water you're using before you grab the towel or the whatever, clap your hands.
Yeah, shake them.
Yeah, for washing your hands. Yeah, absolutely. No,
clap your hands. The best way to get them dry.
Yeah, I dry my hands on my shirt, but yeah.
Yeah, there's that, right?
Yeah,
don't wipe your hands on your clothes, damn it.
Yeah, right. Don't wipe your hands on your clothes. It's like a bad habit. I just like wipe them off my pants or whatever, my sweatshirts or sweatpants or whatever. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that does. What's that?
Some cities in Japan require the residents to sort their garbage for 46 different items so that they can put the compostable different from the burnable, different from the crushable and recoverable.
Oh, that would be ideal.
Wow.
Yeah. So in other words,
we are a long way from that type of mindset that will allow us to do that here.
Yeah, a lot of work to go.
We need to be sustainable.
Yeah, a lot of work to go. And unfortunately, there's no incentive to do the right thing. We got to make them do it.
Right, and that's where regulation comes in. Having it well regulated, just like we do with our guns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Perfect. Let's show you.
And Clive Bundy says, amen, brother.
All right.
So,
that's great, dude. You're absolutely right, Snork. I appreciate the information. That's cool. So he's absolutely right. You don't have to actually get rid of paper towels per se. We just need to do it in a far more sustainable manner. And, of course, use less water. Unfortunately, it's not happening at the moment. And so I think avoiding that would be to give money away from the Koch brothers. But yeah, I am conscious of the fact that I do use a little bit more water now as a result of using dish towels and hand washing versus using a dishwasher and paper towels. But I do my best to avoid using those chemicals that he mentions because I don't. That's one of my pet peeves. If anyone's ever seen the documentary on Netflix called Chem Miracle, which is chemical and miracle mixed together.
Chimerical.
Yeah, I would recommend that. It's actually, a life-changing movie for me because it's gotten me away from the chemicals that are poisoning us on a day-to-day basis. The subtext of that movie is redefining clean, and that's because what we define as clean is really just a use of petrochemicals rather than and killing of good bacteria along with the bad bacteria in this so-called sanitization era that we live in with this antibacterial soap crap, which, by the way, antibacterial soap contains triclosan, which is a petrochemical byproduct, which, by the way, is far more toxic than just washing your hands with old Ivory soap or your basic Castile soap. So avoid antibacterial, what do you call those things? Sanitizing. What are those things called? Gels, antibacterial gels or whatever. Yeah, don't use them.
Okay.
And just let your hands go dirty. There is such thing as good bacteria, and we should embrace that. But
there you go. Yeah, I mean all sorts of bacterium and microorganisms and microscopic things that are at work in us and outside of us and all around us, and it's a beautiful thing how it all comes together. I want to mention real quick, thanks to Snork Y2K for calling in. And we love you, buddy, and brilliant contribution to the show as always, man. So thank you.
And thanks for enlightening us. You are one of the probably our most smartest, our most educated listener, and you always provide us with information that I certainly never would have been aware of.
Our resident ecology engineer. I mean, hey, it's always good to have one of those guys on your side, right?
Yeah, dude's wicked smart.
And we do have a couple of minutes left. I'm going to have to move real fast here. The comment line is open, and again, your calls always go to the front of the line, 503-746-TALK. If you don't get into this show, you can always leave a message, and we will get to it the next show. Skeptical Scott and I are filling in for the Nicole Sandler Show tomorrow morning at radioornot.com. 10
a.m.
10 a.m. Eastern to 12 noon Eastern time. So we can continue the conversation there as well tomorrow and Wednesday. So without further ado, before I run out of time or we get someone else to call in or Scott goes off on another rant, which I love all of it. I love all of it. This is why it's unfiltered.
No time.
This is the moment that everyone has been waiting for. This is my exclusive interview with, I hope you've been waiting for this moment. If you've been to our homepage, you've already watched it, so that's cool. But the moment that some of you have been waiting for, my exclusive interview with Seattle Council member Kshama Sawant. And, of course, with the line of people behind me, I made it really quick. I only asked one question. And my question was, Council member Sawant, can you please tell me about your personal inspirations and your personal motivations behind what you're doing? Because when I talk to folks, and this is exactly what I said to her, I said, friends I talk to are like, I'm so not empowered and like, I can't really create change and it's just me. What can I do kind of thing? And if you listen to Kshama Sawant, the clips we played earlier, you're so kick-ass, taking on the corporate state kind of thing. Tell me about the motivation and inspiration behind you and for yourself. And here is Council Member Kshama Sawant and our exclusive interview for you. Enjoy.
I don't think there's anything unique about how I feel. I think this is something that a lot of people feel, and a lot of people are, there's a lot of churn going on through people's minds, and people are looking around them and seeing a world full of people that are completely ravaged by the system, socially, politically, economically. And for me, that was just like anybody else, that was the beginning. When I grew up in India as a child, my earliest memory was looking at the extreme poverty and deprivation and sexual violence against the poorest of women, the lower caste women, and not accepting that somehow that was preordained. That's not, that I just never accepted that that should be the way human society functioned. But it was not just a moral or ethical question. It was also a systemic question for me because it was clear that there is so much wealth in society, so much technological capability in society that there was no need for any of this misery. So clearly there was an artificial reason why that was happening, and it clearly served the purpose of somebody somewhere. And that sort of led me to the quest to understanding Marxist analysis and understanding that this was systemic. And really, while we fight for reforms under capitalism, we have to absolutely fight against capitalism itself.
Time to overthrow the corporate state.
It is time to overthrow this exploitative system. Yes.
Amen. Thank you so much for what you do, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
exploitative system.
What? Say that again, Scott. Say that again. Say that again. What? Okay. Well, I
Fuck.
You're there.
Time to overthrow the exploitative system.
Yeah, there you go.
My computer's running extremely slow, so
it's all good, man. And I am too at this point. So, your computer's not the only one. Hey, before we run out of time and I have to wrap up, I don't have much time to play much of Nicholas Caleb's speech. He's the city council candidate here in Portland. I do want to give him at least 60 seconds as I promised in this episode. So I want to play the first minute of this clip, and you can watch the whole clip at our website at filterfreeradio.com. I'm also looking to interview Nick, and I will be personally voting for him. Spoiler alert. So, as promised, my apologies. Time flies, and when you get folks who want to call in, and I want people to call in and participate, they go to the front of the line. Things get pushed back a little bit. So we'll get to Nick more. Again, watch the video at filterfreeradio.com. Here's 60 seconds.
15. What do we want? Now. What do we want? 15. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? 15. When do we want it? Now. It's super loud. When do we want it? 15. When do we want it? Now. Thank you so much. Hey, I want to introduce the next speaker. Next speaker is Nicholas Caleb.
As it turns out, a few years ago, Nicholas Caleb was my math teacher at Concordia University, and I ended up dropping out of his math class to join Occupy Portland when that was going on a few years ago.
Wow. Yeah. Woo! Right on.
I gotta say,
that's awesome.
I'm really excited to introduce to you Nick Caleb, who's running as an independent for City Council on a Fight for 15 Now campaign. So, without further ado, Nicholas Caleb.
Capitalism is insane.
Yeah.
And when I talk about capitalism, what I mean, because there's a lot of debate over what kind of capitalism are you talking about, but when I talk about capitalism, I mean a system that profit, greed, and control of the workforce over all other values that we might have in our human society. It's a word I like to use to describe a system that destroys global culture, is laying siege to our global ecology. It's also a word that I use to describe an economic system that makes absolutely no sense anymore. It's totally abstracted. The values that we're talking about in trillions and billions of dollars while other people live on pennies, it doesn't even make sense anymore. It's completely gone awry. A lot of people will use different words to describe the system, and like John was talking about, there's no reason that we get hung up on the actual, neat definitions as a reason to divide us. Some people call it crony capitalism, some people call it corporate capitalism, some people call it deregulated capitalism. I just call it capitalism. I think it's a little bit more efficient. The point of it is that there is a system that interacts with government, it interacts with the economy. It's making the world increasingly inequitable. It's orienting us towards collapse, environmental, economic, all at the same time, and it's pushing us off of a cliff. There is a logic that underlies the system, and this logic is insane. We need to be able to say that.
Yeah.
And I've got to cut it off there for time. And my apologies to Nicholas Caleb. You can check it out, the website calebforcouncil.com, or is it calebforcouncil.org? And the whole video is at filterfreeradio.com. You can watch that. Look for an interview that I'm going to be doing with Nicholas coming up soon on the show. And Skeptical Scott, brother from another mother, the show's co-host and kick-ass producer and all-around good fellow from our nation's capital, man. How do you change the world in 60 seconds? What is your take-home message that you want people to take away from this one?
There's a litany of things. First, I'd like to point out that there's a good interview last week on the Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman about Tom's River, how a small town fought back against corporate giants for toxic dumping linked to cancer. It's just more evidence of what can be done when people come together and fight against these monoliths. But I'll leave you with a Chris Hedges quote from his last week's article, which was titled "The Rhetoric of Violence." And that simple quote is that revolutions succeed because of revolutionary thinking. Such consciousness takes years to build. It slowly and visibly burrows into the organs of power, and then it leads those inside to defect to the revolution. And once that happens, power crumbles. And that's where we are as a society, essentially. I think a lot of people understand what's going on, and not a lot of people know what to do about it. And then it's written in the Constitution, revolution. It's a hard thing to grasp, and it's a toxic word. Fascism and revolution and oppression and these things we think of as third world countries, but they are in fact afflicting us, and we need to accept them and learn to deal with them in a rational manner.
You get the final word, brother, and I'm so happy that you're just so smart, and you're our co-host, and it's good stuff, man. Thank you as always, and this is why you are at the top and first and foremost of our thank yous every show. Huge thanks to everyone who makes this show possible. I could not do it without you. And that goes to our super duper awesome mass producer, co-host, kick-ass brother from another mother, Skeptical Scott in our nation's capital. Thank you, buddy. I got to thank Nicole Sandler for syndicating us on radioornot.com. Thanks to everyone at We Act Radio for syndicating us on We Act Radio 1480 AM WPWC in Washington, D.C. Thanks to Kenny Pick for syndicating us on Liberal Justice Radio, soon to be Indie Media Weekly. Thanks to Kevin McLeod of Incompetech.com, Dano of DanoSongs.com for music production. Thanks to our webmaster, Shano, for the awesome website and new one coming soon. Thank you to our listeners, our friends, for liking the show, spreading the word, helping us grow. Friends in the chat room, to Snork and Will and Mark Taylor Canfield, who tried to call in tonight. Love you guys. Keep up the good conversation.
And thank you, Jacob Dean, for doing this show.
A very big thank you to our official chef and puppy sitter, JD Fishin, without whom I would not be able to do this show. And we need you to participate, get active, be the change, and make a difference. Much love, y'all. See you next week. FilterFreeRadio.com.
Filter Free Radio.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. So give me something to believe, 'cause I am living just to believe. And I need something more to keep on breathing for. So give me something to believe.
The revolution will be broadcast
Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio.